Welcome to Tell Me a Story. My name's Adina Samuels, and I'm inviting anyone and everyone to share their stories with me. Let's see what we get. Ben Sterlin, welcome to Tell Me a Story. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So before we get started, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Ben Sterlin. I am 29 years old. I am from Toronto, but I've since moved to Tel Aviv. And I am an artist, first and foremost. I've been an actor and a director, and I write lots of stuff, and I teach English here. I study sound engineering, so I'm sort of all over the map.
Yeah, there's just this distinct memory that I have of you performing your one-man show, I guess. How would you describe it? You had created this selection of poems.
Right.
Talk about it a little.
I would call it a recital, I guess, or like a concert. It was really my attempt to have a concert because like I don't sing or make music. So it was like, so I made like a set list for myself. And it was launching a book that I wrote called Man Is Just Names, my sort of debut collection.
If you squint,
it
is in there.
Right,
Yeah.
it's somewhere in there. I'm very proud. It's in her bookshelf. It was really awesome. I worked with a friend who's also a pianist to devise kind of what each track's musical accompaniment would sound like, and we went through it and we rehearsed it a bunch of times, and I'm really proud of the product that we had. And actually, I had an archivist come and record the show before the public came in, and I have those audio files that I'm now generating into a live album that's going to come out at some point. So
that's amazing, Ben.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't wait. Okay, we'll launch the link here when it's ready.
Yeah,
that's
put that
huge.
in the show notes, baby.
Exactly. So Ben, you know the rules. You bring a story, you tell a story. What's your story?
Sure. So when you asked me to come on, I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. And a couple of days after that, actually, I saw in your story that you posted this picture of, I guess, like a leaf or a branch with the frozen rain. And there was like the crystallized rain on it. And it actually made me remember the first and I think only time I remember experiencing like freezing rain in Toronto. And I think it was when I was like 17, maybe 16 or 17 years old. I don't know if you remember. I think it was like 2013. There was this like massive ice storm at the end of December.
I think I was in Australia, actually.
Okay, so for those unfortunate folk that were in Toronto, there was an ice storm, and I think it was like worse than what had just happened.
Like what happened now in Toronto?
Like what just happened now?
Bad. Yeah.
Right. So this one was like certifiably way worse. And my parents, I think, were on some sort of cruise or on vacation. They were not in the city to deal with what had happened. So I was alone, like by myself, staying at home, and I knew that there was going to be this storm, but no one really knew like what was going to happen. So I was like, okay, like, you know, whatever. I think it was like winter break, and I was like hanging out with friends in the city. And one morning, I woke up sort of after the storm, and I like tried to like turn on lights or whatever, and like nothing was working. And I was like, oh, okay, so like there's no power. And I didn't know at that time like how widespread an issue it was. And like now looking back, like once we found out what happened, it was like quite a widespread issue.
What did happen? Was it like nationwide? What happened?
No, it was citywide. I think Toronto Hydro really had a lot of like, you know, tasks on their hands. But pretty much my understanding of it was like the rain condensed so much to the point where like it weighed down these wires, and like you pretty much had like all of these electrical wires and these electrical posts like falling, and there were also like trees falling, and there was just a lot of damage that I'm not sure people really expected from an ice storm. but the damage was there nonetheless. I didn't really know about it at the time. I just knew
Yeah,
that
meanwhile, you're like, why doesn't my light turn on?
right, exactly. It's like, oh, it's cold. Like, keep in mind, it was like mid to late December.
Mm.
So, which also meant that like the heat didn't work.
Mm-mm.
So I didn't really know what to do, and I was like, okay. The first day wasn't so bad. The house was still warm enough, and I think I was like having, plans with friends. But I just remember that night, one of my friends got affected, and one of them didn't. But we were like a triumvirate. We were like a little triumvirate.
Triumvirate? I've never
Yeah.
heard that before. I like
I think
that.
it's a nation run by 3 people, a triumvirate. Anyways, we were like the 3 best friends that anybody could have. We spent so much time together doing so many different things together. And I think that like around that time was like our peak friendship, because it was like we were still going to the same school. We were still living, within 5-minute drive of each other. And we were just hanging out all the time. And we were at the age where, we didn't really need people to like chauffeur us around. Like, we could drive, whatever. We would go to like board game cafes. We would like hang out, play video games. And then once we found out what had happened with the ice storm, my friends had an idea to come to my place, actually. And I'll actually never forget like what this looked like. And we pretty much found all of the blankets in my house, and we found all of the candles in my house, okay? And we lit all the candles in my house, and we just like wrapped ourselves in like all of these blankets, and we brought like games, like board games, card games. And I just remember like by the candlelight, we were there like freezing, probably, like playing these games for like hours.
Wait, so was like TV wasn't working? Were your
No.
phones on low battery? Like,
Well, I guess like I had no means of charging my phone, because like the power needs to come from the wall. So I don't remember my phone being in the situation. I'm sure, there was some sort of phone
but there was no
action.
way that like you could do anything but basically look at each other, talk, or play a game.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you couldn't even play like video games. Like everything needed to be analog.
Okay, so what kind of games did you have?
We really messed with this game called Dominion, which is like a deck building game. Like everybody gets a turn, and
you're a big games person in general, right? Like this is something you love to do, playing cards, right?
Yeah. I love, at some point when I get my podcast off the ground, I'm gonna do an encounters with games. It's gonna be a whole.
Okay, I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Well, I was playing games from very young age, and it
was a family thing? You all played?
Yeah, it was a family thing. My dad taught me how to play a lot of games. My mom played a lot of card games. In my extended family, we would play hearts, we would play euchre. And I remember, I'm going to stick with this one story, but I just remember not being old enough to like join my cousins and my uncles in playing. They were like, you need to watch first. Watch and learn. And then when we decide when you're good enough, that's when you can come in and play. Yeah, it was a very like cutthroat
a hazing ritual.
Right, exactly. It was initiation.
Okay, bring us back to
so
the cold.
we were freezing in our blankets, playing games, probably playing board games. We were playing this game Small Worlds at the time too. We were really into, which is like conquering different regions, and you have races, and you have to whatever. It was really fun. And we just like spent hours doing that. And then we slept there, like in our blankets, and then woke up like in the blankets. And then we sort of decided that we could not like stay there. It was just like too cold. So
you were really cold at that point when you woke up.
Yeah. So, and I was also like trying to call my parents. Like I was just trying to like be like, guys, like the electricity's down. I don't know what's happening. And I think at this point, like I had heard some people getting back their electricity, and ours still wasn't back. And I was like, what's going on? I think like my friend, one of my friends who had like a temporary outage, like they got their electricity back, but
And
none
you're
of
just like a
our,
high schooler. Like, what am I supposed to
yeah,
do?
I think it
It's
was
freezing
like,
in here. My parents are gone, you
yeah,
know.
it was like the winter break of my like grade 11 or grade 12 year. And I was like, literally, what do I do? And like they were on a cruise, they weren't like readily at their phone, right? So like, you know, once my mom got around to like checking her phone and like being like, oh, something's happening, um, and sort of hearing what was happening, I had already like moved out, kind of, because I couldn't stay
Where did you go?
in the house. So for like the next 2 days, I like took refuge in people's houses. I remember staying for a night one of the friends' houses that wasn't affected. And I also remember this vividly. I like was shaving in their sink and I like left the like little stubbly hairs, some of them in the sink, and like his mom was like, who did this, like gave me like shit for like doing that. But it's like, honestly, like it's my bad, because like what are you gonna, like, clean up your hair, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very specific memory. It's kind of like shameful. You're like, oh, like why did I?
right, yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think it's a testament to, I mean, hopefully, to how much I've like kind of like grown to be more thoughtful
You would
of the
never
people
leave
sharing a
little
space.
beard hairs in the
I would
sink
never,
anymore
yeah,
ever.
no, 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 no toothpaste stains either.
That's growth. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that was one night, and then I like drove up north to Thornhill, like a suburb, and I stayed with my aunt, like in their basement room overnight. And I was just like, what is my life right now? Like, I can't go home. I'm freezing all the time. Like, I don't have any of my stuff, right? And it's like, and I think maybe on day 3, I called my uncle, who my mom sort of tasks with like looking over our house whenever any of us are not there. He like, you know, comes to collect our mail and whatever. So he came and he did like an inspection, and he was the one who called the Toronto Hydro Company. And it turns out that I think what I remember is like a tree, some sort of tree fell, I guess, from the weight, or maybe it got so cold that like the wood kind of like cracked. And when it was falling, it like took down a wire which was connected to like the power box on the side of our house. Like every house has like a power box, and it just like ripped it right off the wall. So that would make sense why everybody's kind of.
I don't understand like what freezing rain is. Like, how is it different from snow, and how does this not happen every year?
You're asking the wrong person. I think it must be something to do with the specific circumstances of,
Okay, let's just
like,
move along. Yeah.
right. Yeah. I'm no physicist, man. I'm just here to tell you what happened.
Okay, so you had no power connection whatsoever to your apartment, and you were basically
Right.
in this liminal space,
Yeah.
moving between people, places. Who are
Right.
you?
And then on the third day, it kind of like settled, right? Like the city is like, oh, let's look for downed power lines. So they go and they fix the downed power lines, and that restores everybody's power who still has a working power box. But nobody knew that I also had a defunct power box because it was ripped off the side of the house. So they had to come and they had to sort of like, I don't know if they replaced the box or like remounted the box and reset it or whatever. But I think they probably did that on like day 4 or day 5. And like, I'm alone. Like, my parents are still on that cruise. Like,
And you're so cold. You're
yeah,
so cold.
and I'm so cold.
And hungry. Like, do you know how to cook for yourself at this point?
I don't.
And how could you cook?
I don't know.
Electricity's not working.
No, I think that I was really taking advantage of like the generosity and like hospitality of, you know, my refuge families. You know, they were like feeding me and giving me heat and all that stuff. So yeah, I just like, what a state to be in for 72 hours.
Definitely. Definitely. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's like it I mean I think of a lot of things like whenever I think about how cold it is in Toronto, I think about the pioneers like
Oh
all those
yeah, they
years
had a
ago.
rough time.
And they literally like had to chop wood in the minus whatever degree weather in order to get a little fire to boil water so that they could
Uh-huh.
bath. Like, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I'm not built for that, you know?
Yeah, me neither. That's why I live here now.
Yeah, I have the space heater on nonstop in this apartment in the summer because it's
For sure. For sure. Maybe you're not meant to be there either.
yeah, maybe not, maybe not.
But I think, honestly, what drew me to the story is like
Yeah.
the way I look back on it now. You know, I think all of us, we have these, you know, formative experiences with these formative people in our life that really kind of like help shape and affect who we are and help like, you know, influence how we see the world and how we relate to each other and how we learn to do those things over time. And it's really sweet. You know, now looking back, it's probably happened more than a decade ago. And, you know, now we only really talk to each other on our birthdays. Like now the tradition is, you know, on each one of our birthdays, we get on a three-way call and we have like a three-way call for, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes.
When you say we, you mean the three friends who
Yeah,
played games and
exactly,
snuggled.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because things change and, you know, I went away to university and, you know, one of my friends started dating this American girl at the end of high school and they were doing long distance for all of university. And then when they had graduated, he had decided to like move in with her, like in America. So he went to go live away and, you know, relationships change and evolve over time, and there's just like things happen in life, and that's not a bad thing. And there's also like nothing to really be done about it. But I think, you know, what makes me feel so like good about it and at peace with it is the fact that if you would ask them if they remembered that, they would be like, oh yeah, crystal clear.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of memories that you won't forget because it's kind of like a where were you when situation. Like
Yeah.
everyone can remember that ice storm. I wasn't even in the country, but you know,
Right.
everyone knows their experience of that story. And you got to share it with two people who, you know, despite them not being sort of active members in your life right now, will always hold that place for you.
Right.
One thing I know to be true about you, Ben, though, is that you value friendships like so much. Like in the list of priorities in the world, your friends are like at the top every time, right?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Because I think I've learned about friendship from you actually, like what it is to just exist together, like not always needing to be doing something or talking about something, but just like existing together. And I think like friendship just and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a huge part of what makes life worth living. Like for you are the people in your life. So I'm not surprised that you
Sure.
told me that story about your friends by the candlelight, you know?
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been friends for a long time.
You and me?
Yeah.
I mean, not candlelight long, but we'll
No,
get there
not
one day.
candlelight. Well, but you know, close to it.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. And I remember when our friendship first started, I thought you were like really cool. Like I wanted to
Oh,
impress
you
you.
did.
Yeah. I mean, now I know better, but like,
Right. Yeah. Good. It's a good
I
thing.
remember like we worked at the same organization, and I think I once gave you a ride home or something, and I wanted to make sure that the radio station was at a cool
Oh,
station,
that's
like when I
hilarious.
turned on the ignition so that you'd think that I had good taste. Evidently, it worked because we still talk. So,
Totally. I think you have good taste.
thanks, Ben.
Yeah. And it's cool to see like what your friends do now, it's like, okay, like we didn't go to the same school, but I have a lot of friends that I've made in the formative years of my life that like we all like went to the same school, or like we belong to the same youth group, and now I have friends in America and in London, and now like I'm here, and they're doing like cool shit, like like
I guess, like, for someone who values friendship so much, as an adult, it gets harder and harder to A, make new friendships, and B, maintain the ones you already have because everyone's going on their own journeys. Like, how do you navigate
preach.
all of that? Is it holding on to the memories of the past? Like, what do you do to fulfill that for you because it's such an important thing?
Oh, that's loaded. I really try to make the effort. I think that's like what I do. I think I'm very good at making the effort. I think, since I moved away and, most of my good friends are back home, because I'm so far away now, it could be very easy to like settle into like an out of sight, out of mind mentality, both ways for both parties. But, I think because I'm away, it's even more of a reason to like really keep up. I would say that it's funny, like now that I'm away, I'm probably like on, you know, I like know what's going on in each of my friends' lives like the most now, because when we all lived in the same city, it was like, oh, I'm definitely going to see you at some point, like, and I'll figure it out then. And we
Mm-hmm.
like hang out, we like go to the movies or whatever, but we can't really sort of do that. Whenever I talk to my friends, we like are talking because it's the only really thing that we can do. So, I'm able to engage with them on a deeper level, like
And
the
it
other
also,
day I
in a
had a
way,
2 hour.
it like identifies for you who are the people that are going to put in as much effort as you are into the friendship,
Yes,
and it makes you kind of know who your friends are. And I'm calling myself out here because we certainly don't keep in touch as much as I should be texting you while you're
oh, it's
away, but
okay. Well, I know
but
it's also like, you come to visit and I go to visit,
yeah.
and like you're on your grind and I'm on my grind, and that's okay.
Because there's also something to be said about the kind of friend who you can see after a year, 2 years, without really chatting with them. You get together and it's
For
like
sure.
no time has passed. That's a
For
kind of
sure.
magic in itself,
For
too.
sure. And there are some people that are just like that. Like I have some out of sight, out of mind friends, and like I can be like that to an extent too. And I also have friends that are really interested in like sort of keeping up on a closer level, but that's just because like that's who they are. It's
Hmm.
not a symptom of our personal relationship. Like, yeah, we're good friends, like that's why we talk, but also, I can be sure that he's keeping up like that with 10 other of his good friends, because that's
Hmm.
just like the person that he is, right? And it's one of the
Yeah.
things that I love about him.
I have like so many questions about friendship, which we won't get into today, but I think the way that I always describe my friendships to people is I have a lot of like surface level friends, but by
Mm-hmm.
choice, very few friends who can actually adequately like tell me more about me than I know.
Interesting.
And I think family has always taken that kind of priority role, and friends has always been secondary because of something in my past in sixth grade, which when I get to share a story, I'll share that one.
Okay.
But I think friendship for me, I've always wanted it to be that thing that like grounds me and is there for me no matter what. But in reality, it simply hasn't been that way. Like at the end
No.
of the day, when I ask myself, who's there for me every time, no matter what, doesn't matter when, who, why, it's my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me wonder where friends fall in.
That's a very good point. I think, I've always thought that, like when shit hits the fan, and this doesn't apply to everybody, certainly, but like I know for me, like when shit hits the fan, if shit were ever to like really hit the fan, God forbid it does, but if it did, like I know that I would go to my mom. You just like know that, you know, she's there. And I think that never goes away. And that's probably why like losing a parent is probably like one of the biggest losses that you can experience in life, because it is that like primordial attachment. Like that is it. And then all of a sudden it like disappears. So you're like, oh shit, right? And it's like, listen, you're not like accountable to like but no one's forcing you to be accountable to like anybody or anything in life. Like those are choices that thankfully as adults, like we get to make as we grow up and we age and we sort of start to better understand and put into focus what our priorities in life are. And you make decisions based off of that.
And the measure of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like a well-adjusted adult is someone who can recognize what the different people, how the different people in their life serve them in different moments. Like a friend isn't meant to be the savior, or your mom isn't meant to be your best friend, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Everyone has
and everyone can define those relationships for themselves, right? There are no, I'm a very big believer in like, there is no one else that should be setting any rules for how your life and relationships should look than you, And I've had people certainly impose their own like rules and limitations on to me, like not all of my friendships have like continued and endured, and like some of them have ended like pretty, not necessarily dramatically, but intentionally. Like I was like informed, and like that hurts. Like it's a hard pill to swallow. But I suppose you just have to remind yourself like everybody has shit, and it's like what, like at the end of the day, like what are you gonna do? Like what, I've very much come to terms with the fact that, I can give what I can give and nothing more. Like that's really something that I've been learning in the past, whatever, as I age into my like late 20s and soon my 30s, is just like you can give what you can give, and like no matter how much you want to be able to give more than you can give, like you simply can't.
Yeah, I think an extension of that is what my grandmother always says, which is that you have to be your own best friend, because you're the only person who can give you exactly what you need and who can understand you exactly as you are. So by attempting to seek out the fulfillment of your needs in friendships or relationships or whatever it is, it's kind of a losing battle, because ultimately you have everything you need with
you. And I think I would take that one step further. If you actually do the work to become your own best friend, because for like a lot of us, and like at times myself included, like we are our own worst enemies and our own harshest critics, right? So it's a process to both learn and unlearn a lot of things that block us from becoming our own best friends. But once we do, and once we sort of like unlock that, we can actually free ourselves up and give ourselves more of a capacity to actually be better friends and better sons, brothers, partners, all of that stuff. It works in the same process.
I totally agree. Yeah. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with me and getting a little philosophical at the end. It's always a pleasure to chat to you, and I'm truly grateful to call you a good friend of mine.
Likewise, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Tell Me a Story. If you like what you heard, like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill.